everybody. My name is Carl Umali, and welcome to episode number 23 of the Clarity Project Podcast. For today's episode of the Clarity Project Podcast, we are here at the Old Grove Farmstead. So, for today's video, this doesn't have a date, but this is from Sam Altman on being successful. And I think there are how many points here? 13, I believe. So 13 pieces of advice from Sam Altman. So let's start with the first one, shall we? The first one says, compound yourself. Your life should follow an up and to the right trajectory. You don't want to be in a career where someone who has been doing it for 2 years can be as effective as someone who has been doing it for 20. As your career progresses, each unit of work should generate more and more results. You can achieve this through leverage, capital, tech, brand, network effects, and managing people. Develop a truly long form view. So, for that number one, it all talks about compounding, it all talks about the asymmetrical realities in life, wherein you're competing not just in terms of output, but your output actually compounds to something bigger. I think there's a really important, really note here that says you don't want to be in a career where someone who has been doing it for 2 years can be as effective as someone who has been doing it for 20. So it means that in this kind of field, in this kind of career that you want to tackle, it has to have that certain kind of expertise in it. And that specific knowledge can only be brought up not only by small repetition and small iteration. It requires years and years of hard work, years and years of iteration, years and years of experience to be able to be on top of that field, to be effective on that field. And so that means that if you pursue a kind of a career that has that kind of difficulty in it, that kind of exclusivity in it, wherein those who are willing to work that long and those who are willing to improve their skills that long would get the benefit, would be able to be effective at it. You don't want to go to a career where a newbie, a fresh graduate who's been doing it for a couple of years can be as good as you. You don't want to be in a career where a beginner is all you need for that kind of a job. You want to be highly skilled and highly effective. You want to have specific knowledge that only you can do. So there are a lot of ways that you can compound yourself. And it says here that as your career progresses, each unit of work should generate more and more results. You can achieve this through leverage, which are capital, tech, brand, network effects, and managing people. So what is leverage, right? Maybe we should talk about leverage. Leverage is something that you can use at a small force, but it has an opposite or an equal kind of a reaction that is tenfold of the initial output. For example, me doing this podcast right now, wherein no one knows me, if I put this and I upload this on my social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, if I upload it there, it's not going to have that same effect as when Elon Musk does a video of the same topic, or maybe even just memes, right? So people who have skin in the game, people who have that kind of leverage, in this case, they have a leverage of brand, then they'll be able to reach more people because they have better branding, they have better network effects, they have that kind of a leverage through society. Now, of course, you have to also look at how I got here and the kind of privilege that I have for being able to record this, for being able to publish this freely on social media, virtually, and at least in theory, everybody in the world could see it. Now, if we go back just 20 years ago, this would be impossible. You would have to be signed by a international cable company who's going to show this to through television. So in a way, each and every one of us, if you have access to the internet and you have a phone to record in, or you have social media where you can post your thoughts in, you have the leverage of tech. You have the leverage of technology that other people, even way smarter people, didn't have 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, these are the things that makes up leverage, and these are the things that can help you compound in your career or in terms of just being successful. So, shall we go to the second one? Number two, believe in yourself, even when it seems to be in the point of delusion. Entrepreneurship is very difficult because original teaching is very difficult to teach. First, principles. So, yeah, I mean, I went to business school and a lot of professors whom I think are on the good side or at least good at what they do, they are not just readers. They're not just someone who would give you modules and explain it by the book. Sometimes when we try to explain something, it easily becomes complicated just because we're trying to get it across from a point of how we already know it rather than how we first knew of it. So you really have to go back to basics. So it's really difficult for someone to understand step number 35 when they're a beginner, when they should be starting at step number 1. So it's very difficult for someone to understand what someone does, an executive in a senior level, when they should be at the lowest point possible. When you should be explaining these things, these concepts at the lowest point possible. Because sometimes this is the curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge is that when you know something, it becomes something that is apparent to you. It becomes obvious to you. And when something is obvious to you, you automatically expect that it's obvious to everybody, when the fact is it's not. It's only obvious to you because you already know it. But because they don't know it, they are ignorant to that kind of a thing, it's completely alien to them. Even if for you it's common knowledge, even if for you it's common sense. To them, it's not common sense. To them, it's not common knowledge. To them, you actually have to teach them that. So, this is the importance of first principles thinking. Because when something is difficult for you, it doesn't mean that it's automatically hard. When something is hard or difficult to understand, maybe you're looking at it from a perspective of someone who already know it, or if someone who's at level 50 or someone who's already at level 100, when you should be understanding a concept at level 1 at the simplest terms possible. So why does this phenomena happen? Again, going back to the curse of knowledge. When we know something by heart, when we are an expert at it, we use up a bunch of shortcuts to be able to make things faster. Imagine just trying to explain what the word talking is. Try to explain what talking is. To us, if you say, hey, what is the meaning of talking? And you would just talk and talk and talk. But imagine if it's an alien who doesn't know or doesn't communicate through the act of opening our mouth, vibrations through our throat, through our voice box, or whatever. They don't have that, and maybe they are communicating through telepathy. All of a sudden, the concept of talking is something that is very foreign to them, in fact, very alien to them. And so, how would you explain the concept of talking to an alien? That's how you are going to be forced to think in terms of first principles. Because all of a sudden, when you try to teach this to someone who already knows what talking is, or at least is already talking, it would be easier because you would just speak, speak, and speak, and then maybe point to your mouth and then point to the vibrations, give them kind of an imagery of what it looks like, what it sounds like, and they will get the idea. Talking is the act of producing sound through the mouth. And what if they don't know what a mouth is? What if they don't know what a sound is? So you got to go back to the very first principles into trying to explain a concept. The more simple, the more fundamental that you can go, the more easier it is for you to understand it as a concept wholly. Again, the reason why a lot of people who already knows things are bad at explaining stuff is because they already know it. This is the curse of knowledge. It's not that they are purposely trying to complicate things. It's not that they're trying to make things as difficult as it actually is. It's just that they're doing that because they already know it. There's shortcuts and there's more efficient ways into trying to explain something. So why do we do shortcuts? Well, it's kind of easy. It's easier to do shortcuts because we expect that they already know it. For example, if we're talking to the average person and we want them to talk to our mom, we would just say, hey, can you talk to my mom? That's it. You don't have to explain what talking is. You don't have to explain the concept of talking, and you don't have to explain the concept of mom, and you don't have to explain the concept of a question on what it actually entails, on what it actually asks. So it's not necessarily their fault. It's not necessarily that they are doing it on purpose. So we also have to check ourselves. Are we committing this as well? Are we doing it as well? Are we trying to explain something to a beginner in our own level? Or should we, for the lack of a better term, dumb it down for them? Should we, and this is the better term, just focus on the fundamentals and what it really means and make sure that they understand it on a fundamental level? All right, so this is number 3. Become good at sales. You also have to convince other people. All career eventually becomes sales jobs. Think clearly and use plain and concise language. All right, so there's this principle in sales or in anything called KISS. It's an acronym of the word KISS, KISS. So it means keep it simple, stupid. A lot of the times we try to overcomplicate things. We should not. We should use clear and concise language in terms of the sales. And that's why especially when we're trying to sell to the masses and even not to the masses, it's very important to be clear about what you're doing. Absolutely important to be clear about what you're saying, what your product is, what you stand for, and your core values, your beliefs. It says here again, all career eventually become sales jobs. At the highest point of your career, on whatever career you are in, perhaps you're no longer expected to do the actual work. So you are in managing people, right? You are in communication. You are in trying to deliver a product across, trying to deliver a strategy across. So it's all going to be a communication kind of a strategy rather than the act itself of actually doing it. The better you are at it, yes, you can still do it, maybe charge more for actually doing it yourself. But the more you progress to your career, the older that you get, the better that you are at it, the more that you're going to get paid for your sales, whether that be direct sales where there's monetary involved or just sales in terms of trying to sell yourself, going into a meeting, communicating, talking to other people, networking effects. All of these things play out in how you're going to sell not only your business, not only your service, but yourself. Number 4. Number 4 says, make it easier to take risk. Make it easier to take risk. Most people overestimate risk and underestimate reward. Take a lot of risk early in your career. You don't have much to lose. Bets where you lose 1 times but win 100 times if you win. Don't save up for long. When people become comfortable, find a steady job and reputation, it becomes harder to leave. It says here, we overestimate the risk and we underestimate the reward. Let me focus on that opening line. Most people overestimate the risk and underestimate the reward. Sometimes the things in our head is way worse than what it actually is. Sometimes we think that something is really horrible, really bad, people are gonna judge us. And then in hindsight, we're like, I can't believe I didn't do that. I can't believe I didn't risk that. I can't believe I didn't try. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how young you are. It's kind of like crazy, kind of a phenomenon wherein, regardless of your age, there's always this something that if we look back on, oh, I wish I did that, right? I wish I risked that. I wish I took a chance on that. And after a while, it becomes this cyclical kind of an event wherein you think of something, you didn't do it. You started something, you didn't finish it. There's like this gut feel that you have to do it and you have to take action. And then at the last minute, you're like, never mind. I don't want to do it. And then you stop and you didn't do it. And then come several years later where you realize all of this again. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I should have done it 10 years ago. I should have done it 5 years ago. I should have done it at that time. And then now you feel bad because you feel like you're late or you feel like you wasted your time. So the next time that this kind of thing, this kind of phenomenon happen, really think about it clearly. Is this really the risk? Is this really the reward? Am I overestimating this? Am I making it seem more horrible than what it actually is? What's the benefit of this? What's the upside and what's the downside? What's the truth between its benefits and its disadvantages? The second line says, take a lot of risk early in your career. When I was starting out in filmmaking and even vlogging in 2017, I wasn't putting up a lot of videos. I wasn't putting up a lot of films because I felt like, oh, I have to top my last one. I have to put more films that is better than the last one, or at least something that I could be comfortable in sharing. When in reality, I should have shot more videos. I should have made more films. And the younger you are, even if what you're doing is bad, chances are society is going to reward you for it just because you are young. Because the difference between me, I'm now 23 years old, going to be at 24 years old in a couple of days. The difference between a 23-year-old creating a film that is good versus a 17-year-old when I started, the film that is somewhat good is massively different. If you put that on a headline, let's say that I make this exact same movie, right? That is good. That is gonna be like super viral. That's gonna be super awesome, super great. A lot of people like it critically and publicly. It's gonna be mass appealing. It's gonna be a hit. The difference between the headlines of a 17-year-old made a successful movie versus a 24-year-old made a successful movie is massively different. It seems to be that the younger you are, the more people associate genius behind it. The younger you are and the younger you achieve these things, the more society or at least the people around you see you as some kind of a virtuoso in that kind of field. When you do something when you're already 30, when you're already 40, or you're already 50 years old, and you become successful, people just kind of expect it. Well, yeah, sure, you're 20, you're 40 years old. What do you expect? All right. What, you're 30 years old, you're in your prime. What do you expect? But when you do something at a younger age, people appreciate it more. So if you're younger, if you are 20 years old and below, and I'm still young, I'm 23. So if I'm able to do the things before that I'm 30 years old, I will have that kind of a leverage. Again, going back to leverage, I would have that age leverage wherein people most of the time appreciate things more when a younger person, someone who is, quote, immature or in the infancy of their career, is able to do what a senior or a master in their field is able to do. So start young, take more risk. And if I didn't vlog at 2017, if I didn't risk going into public speaking in 2016 when I was 16 years old, if I didn't risk becoming a fool and trying to learn English or trying to speak English in public, I wouldn't be as good in speaking in English right now. Yes, there's still a lot of things to work on. Yes, I'm not perfect at it. Yes, I'm not super fluent at it. But I wouldn't be at this level if I didn't start, even at the late age of 16 years old, to actually try to learn the language, to actually try to communicate to more people in this kind of a language. If you try and look back at my earliest vlogs, I was just kind of a guy who's pushing it. I was just kind of a guy who's speaking in English, but I was very slow at it because at that time, I wasn't really speaking English. I was speaking in Filipino in my head, and then I'm translating it as fast as I can in my head, and then speaking it in English on camera. Right now, it's a different kind of a part of my brain. I don't translate things in my head anymore. That's a kind of a brain process that's happening. I'm just communicating in English. And actually, I also kind of realized that when I'm speaking English, I have a different kind of a personality. I have a different kind of a way of like talking to people. I have different cadence. I have different, even an accent, even, although I could change accents. It's a different part of the brain. It's kind of weird. Again, this is a little bit out of topic, but that's the difference. That's the compound interest we were talking about in lesson one. And then again, it's the kind of things that's happening here on lesson number 4, which is take more risk. Because back then, the kind of what I thought that would be something that is going to be an embarrassment, something that is very shameful to be able to talk in public in English. In hindsight, it doesn't really matter because I was young back then. You are expected to fail at a young age. You are expected to not know these things at a young age. You are expected to not have it all figured out. So when people see someone who's young and they fail or they make mistakes, so what? Right? Yeah, sure, people are still gonna judge you, but so what? You're still young, especially when you're below 18. They kind of let it pass. They kind of let it slide. Now, I know sometimes first impressions is last, and some people would always think about how you were so horrible back then. So what? All right? They don't understand you. Right? It's not the truth. Is it the truth? If it is it the ultimate truth? Is it the final truth? Is it the absolute truth? Are you still gonna be in this level 2 to 3 years from now? Are you still gonna be in this level 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Are you not gonna improve? I don't think so. Regardless whatever their expectation is, regardless of whatever they think, know this. Know that when you are young, you should take more risk. And even when you're old, you should take more risk because it's just going to be a cycle of looking back, of saying, oh my gosh, I wish I did that, right? It's going to be a cycle of regrets. It's going to be a cycle of, I wish I did it sooner. Again, the third sentence here of the passage says, bet where you lose only one times, but if you win, it's 100 times. You only lose once, but once you do win, you win tenfold, or you win 100 times fold. In this kind of scenario, we're gonna talk about leverage, and maybe I could put that in terms of content creation. If I do a content like this one, this specific video, and it doesn't do well, I lose only once. But if this video gets viral, if this video opens up new opportunities for me, if this is the video that's gonna make my channel grow, then I win 100 times from this just one video. So the kinds of risk versus rewards is asymmetrical. And that's what it makes it awesome. Sometimes, I've been doing this podcast for what, 1 year now, and I've been doing content since 2017. And I'm very self aware, not even gonna lie, that I am aware of the fact and the possibility that one of these videos could be the video that could be viral and that could jumpstart my channel. Yes, it's still a small channel from when I started. And you might be asking me, oh, does this mean that Carl wants to be famous or whatever? Well, kinda. Why are we doing this, right? We want to help people. And this is kind of like my notes, and this is something that I could leave behind to several generations after me. This kinds of videos is not only for the people in my lifetime. These kinds of videos are forever. As long as there's an internet, as long as there's data, it's gonna stay. And sometimes I look back and just kind of imagine, have I already made the video that's gonna make my channel grow or it's gonna skyrocket my channel? Has it already been made? Or is it this video? Is it the next video? Is it the next two videos? I don't know, right? And that's kind of the mystery out of it. And that's kind of like a good thought to be able to think about. I mean, have I already made the video that's gonna skyrocket my channel? It's gonna boost my channel to a higher lengths. It's gonna make me known and what I'm saying and the kinds of beliefs that I have known. Have I already done it? Is it this video? Is it the next video? So yeah, that's how I think about it. The failures that you have today, just because you don't see it, doesn't mean it's a failure. Sometimes the things that you did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, a couple of months ago, maybe just yesterday, might not have an immediate reward. It might not have an immediate impact in your life. But someday, you might just be surprised that the things that you did 10 years ago or a long time ago or maybe even just yesterday are actually the kinds of things that will have a massive impact in your life. You just don't know it yet. So you have to treat every risk that way. Don't save up for long. When people become comfortable or they find a steady job and they have a reputation, it becomes harder to leave. Keep your life cheap and flexible. So that's the thing, right? The older you are, maybe you have a family, you have a reputation to protect, and there's this kind of expectation to you already by society, and you just can't risk it because it's not just you anymore. You know what I mean? It's not just you anymore. You'll have people depending on you, and when you have people depending on you, and you're thinking not just about yourself, that's how it becomes harder to make a decision. That's when it becomes even harder to take a risk. Yeah, this reminds me of a Naval Ravikant quote, and that Naval Ravikant quote says that And this is about startups. You wanna start small and be small and stay as small as possible before you can leverage it into something big. You want to stay small as possible before scaling it up. You want to make sure that it's something that's repeatable, scalable, and something that really works before you want to make it big. So, yeah, start at the smallest point possible. Flexibility, having that kind of leverage, knowing that your time is ticking even though you're still young. Yes, you're 30 years old, that's still young. 40 years old, some would say it's still young, but you lose leverage over time. You lose the kinds of things that you would have otherwise have, opportunities you would have otherwise have when you are younger. So yeah, I don't know why I'm lying down right now. I don't even know. So let's focus on number five. Let's going back to number five. I think I'm going to end on number five. Then again, we did talk about that there's like what 13, 14 lessons here, but it's getting too long. So let's just go to number five. And so number five is actually it says number six here. I don't know why I did that. It's number four and then I skipped number and then it's already number six. I don't know. Maybe this was done late in the evening, late in I don't know, I don't know. But it's in number number six when it should be number five. So it says focus. One word. Focus. Focus. This is a force multiplier at work. Work on the right thing for many hours. Be unstoppable at getting your small number of priorities quickly. No slow moving person becomes successful. So not only does this talk about focus, it also talks about speed, also talks about action, taking massive action and taking speedy action. So why is focus a force multiplier? I think this is even more true in the kinds of society that we live in today. We are absolutely distracted. Probably when you're listening to this podcast, you're watching this podcast, you were fidgeting on your phone, you were trying to look across social media, maybe you're doing household labor, and this is your distraction through household labor or household chores. But the thing is, we're always bombarded by noise. And this is the kind of realization that I had, not just because I went to business school, but a lot of marketing right now is just brain rot. It's overrated, right? It appeals to a certain kind of group. It appeals to a certain kind of people, right? It's brain rot. It's not marketing, it's brain rot. And yes, it gets more clicks, it gets more shares. It might be the way that you discover the brand. So maybe yes. Is there such thing as a bad publicity? A lot of the old gurus in marketing would say no, but I do think that there is such a thing, right? Yes, you could do a rebrand every now and then, but let's not get into business. You're losing focus again. You have to think about this for a moment. So, we're all distracted, and it's not your fault. It's a different world. Social media, advertisements, they're all over the place. They're bombarded. There's a lot of ads, and some of them you can't even skip unless you pay, and some you do pay, but you have to pay more to get rid of it fully. So we are in a world where we are bombarded by distractions. We are bombarded by fake news. We are bombarded by noise. We are bombarded by people talking loudly and talking over each other. And sometimes all we need is just quiet, or at least we need a voice that is reasonable. We need someone to talk to face. We need someone to listen to that's gonna have like a good value, a kind of a meditative kind of an experience whenever we listen to them. At the same time, when we put this in context of work, focusing makes us productive. Focusing makes us do the things more. But even more important than that, not only that we are doing the things more, we get the clarity to do the right things. Doing something versus doing something that is right are two different things. A lot of people say that they're productive and they're proud that they've accomplished a lot of things in a day, but it doesn't matter if it's not the right thing to do. It only matters. The accomplishments only matter if it gets you closer to where you want to go, if it gets you closer to your goal. Yes, it might be just a small step. Yes, it might just be a small thing, but if it's in line with your goal, then it's the right thing to do. That's what the second line here is all about. It says work on the right things for many hours. Why many hours? because it takes time to build up skills. It takes time for experience. It takes time for compounding. It takes time for you to earn skin in the game. Be unstoppable at getting your small number of priorities. Be relentless about saying no to distractions, saying no to people that are sapping away your energy, right? Toxic people that are sapping away your motivation, saying bad things about you, saying that you can't do this, that you're not as good as you think you are, that you're just going to be at this level forever. Say no to negativity. You have to say no to the kinds of content that make you worse rather than better. You have to rise above brain rot. And I guess brain rot content is enjoyable sometimes, as a kind of a stress reliever, but it shouldn't be where you should focus most of your hours in, or you're improving more than you're making mistakes. Do you know what I mean? You have to work at a level, on a speed wherein you're moving faster than you're making mistakes. Speed run your life, speed run your financial goals, speed run your career, speed run your school, right? If you could do things quickly, do them quickly. If you can do them fast, do them fast. The final sentence of this is says, no slow moving person becomes successful. If you wait all of your life waiting for something, then you're going to wait all of your life waiting for something. They say good things come to those who wait, but here's my take on that. Bad things only happens for those who only wait. Good things happens to those who wait, but bad things happen to those who just wait. That being said, I think that's the podcast for today. If you watch this as a whole or you watch it in snippets, I'd like to be able to thank you, and I'll see you again on the next one. And if that makes sense, follow for more. Thank you, and bye bye.